licence agreement, and that's Councillor Brady-Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to move the recommendations as in point 2. However, I would just like to point out in the report that there is an error in financial implications. It actually says that the land be appropriated from general fund to the HRA, which is just the wrong way round. So I'd like to move the recommendations, but with the amendment to the financial implications. Thank you.
Do you have a second for this? Okay, thank you. Public speakers on this is...
Public speakers on this, which is Mr Concord.
Thank you, Chair. I'm now Councillor Darker again. This is really good news for people to have community orchards. When civilization breaks down, having nut trees, fruit trees, etc., will at least mean some of us can do some foraging. But on a more practical level, there is so much land that could actually have fruit trees on. We need to teach people about fruit, nuts, gathering stuff, and yeah, a lot of school children will walk by a raspberry cane or walk by an apple tree or cherry tree or whatever. So I'd like this to happen in far more locations, so I massively support it and think we should actually have a lot more food in our environment, not just for us but also for nature. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anyone got any points of clarification? No? Thank you. Is any non-cabinet member? Councillor Markham.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I also think this is a good idea, and I hope it succeeds, and I hope it is maintained by the association and it doesn't actually fall back on ourselves. I think it'd be a nice addition for the residents to actually get involved. So, yeah, I think it's nice.
Have you got any points of clarification, Councillor Markham? No? Okay, so it's been moved. Can we move to the vote? Okay, thank you. So that's been accepted. Item 7 is the tenant satisfaction survey. That's for me. So I'll be moving the points that are set out in point 2. And I'll take any questions on anything that's in the report. On this, there is no public speaker or non-cabinet members. Is there anything? Councillor Concord.
Thank you. I haven't really got an awful lot to say, but I think it's really important that the complaints thing is really dealt with, promptly. I know in the following report for the next item, it's sort of all covered in it's very similar, territory, but sort of less than 50% being satisfied with the approach to complaints is really something that needs to be taken very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Concord. As you know, the regulator from Socialising has been looking at us, and they're also happy with what we're doing at the minute. So I've moved the report, seconded, Councillor Fenton. Okay. Can we move to the vote? Okay, thank you. Item 8, housing annual complaints. I think this one could be the one who's on that, Councillor Concord. So I'll move the recommendations that are set out at number 2 in the report. There is no public speaker. Are there any non-cabinet members? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that this is a new kind of way of working for us. I think this is the second year that we're into this properly, doing this, but it's always going to take time to bed in. The one observation that I have that is concerning is that of the original first stage complaints, 50% were upheld. Now, I don't know what the reasons are because the report doesn't go into that, and they may be legitimate reasons or not. Obviously, they've been upheld. But it would be interesting perhaps to know what the reasons were, whether it was because of housing stock or whether it was service provided by officers. I don't know whether it's something that, because it's going to be a concern to all our residents, it could be any one of our residents that's there, so whether it's something that the portfolio holder could ask the relevant OSP to look into, just to see if there's any causes for concern. I know OSP, it's the OSP's choice, but there's nothing stopping you good self, Chair, asking them to look into it to see whether there's a theme, whether it's a particular problem, so that we can try and make sure we get it right for the residents, because obviously 50% does sound quite high, and I think we need to get to the bottom of it. Chair, that would be my only observation.
Okay, Councillor Wilson, I can probably answer some of that for you, because I'm also been the member responsible for complaints, so I have my one-to-ones with Nicola and Dawn regular. And we are looking at if there is any trends, so if it was, and I'm just going to make these up, if it was particularly a bad plasterer that day that's left some mess, or a carpenter that's left a bit of it. So we were looking at if there is any trends, was it an agency, is it our staff? So we are looking at everything like that, but as you said, so goes into our second year, so we are going to take a while to get some of the facts, but we are looking at everything, I can assure you, and that these facts do walk to the scrutiny as well, but I'm happy to ask some more questions. Okay, so I'm moving at point 2. I've had a second from Councillor Venson. Can we move to the vote of that goes through, please? Cheers. Thank you. Right, item 9. Leisure Operator Procurement Awards update. This is for Councillor Brady Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I would like to move the recommendations as per the report, and that's from item 2.1 to 2.4. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Does that find a seconder? Councillor King. Okay, thank you. Public Speaker, Mr. Conco.
Chair, I've got two big concerns about this. One, going way back, probably about 12 years ago, we were talking about Eton Sports Centre and talking about the outdoor track being redone and etc. And we've now totally abandoned the northeast of the Neaton in terms of leisure provision. And we had the Top Farm site, which was going to be in all this procurement for future operators, so we were ready for when Top Farm had a leisure centre. And this has all been abandoned without actually us having a plan B for leisure in Top Farm, Wellington, St Nicholas. Yeah, there's a whole part of town where we've got lots of antisocial behaviour now. Lidl's have had to start having a security guard in the evening because the youths have got nothing to do and are being a nuisance. And we haven't in this procurement looked at what we're doing for the Top Farm area of Nuneaton. And yet we've grabbed an area of land for NBBC leisure, but we've got no way of ever developing it. So that is my big concern. Second concern is at 5.4, where we talk about this £1.5 million we are borrowing as a council and then effectively helping the leisure operator out with a loan at a cheaper rate, rather than the old-fashioned way of giving them a management contract fee. But this has been structured so that it's at zero cost in the next year, and I am a bit concerned by this sort of how you sort of fudge loans into revenue, and this, that actually you're effectively cheating the system and putting money effectively into the budget for future years for actually provision you're getting at the moment. We did the same with the hotel. The first year the hotel's start-up cost we've capitalised and then chucked into future years. So I am concerned about the financial aspects in terms of the timing, and I'm really concerned that we're not doing anything for the North East of the Nuneaton, either in terms of this leisure contract or actually admitting we have no money after the overruns on Better Physical Activity Centre, and actually having a plan B for a commercial operator to operate the site of Top Farm. But Top Farm, which was in all the leisure contracts and was going to be operated by our in-house, has just been forgotten. and that's really important after we've lost E-Town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conkle. Has anybody got any points of clarification? No? Okay, thank you. Any non-member? Councillor Sue Morgan.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. From 5.4 down to 5.9, it goes through the budget and why we're bringing it forward. I think it's a good thing that we're bringing it forward so that the works can, while they're actually having the works done, the refurbishments can take place this year. Otherwise, we run the risk of all three of our leisure centres and swimming baths being closed at the same time. Whereas if it's brought forward as we're intending here, then hopefully then all three won't be closed at the same time. So this will be open while Beggars is closed. So I'm quite pleased that it's been brought forward.
So you're quite pleased that it's been forward? Okay, no, I just wanted to clarify that point. Kevin, did you want to say anything on this? You don't have to.
Thank you. Just for clarification, Chair, the top farm was an element of the procurement process, so is being considered and hasn't been forgotten. And in terms of the 1.5, it isn't a loan, it was included as the procurement process and was for the operators to consider whether they wanted to accept that or not, and it's part of the 10-year agreement, so it will be paid back to the local authority, and it just means that we can have the sites refurbished. And as was previously mentioned, in terms of the timescale, if all goes to plan, we would have the refurbishment works completed at Pingles and reopen in readiness for when the Bedworth physical activity hub is handed over, but there will be a disruption and closure because the existing site has to be demolished. So that hopefully is the plan that will go to fruition. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. So Anine and Bedworth are investing in the health and leisure and for the people in this borough. So Councillor Hughes, you've moved it, been seconded by Councillor King, was it? Yeah, okay. Can we move to the vote on that then, please? Thank you. Number 10, it's Brady Hughes show. Pingles decarbonation. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendations in item 2 for 2.1 and 2.2, but there is an additional recommendation that the report be marked not for calling to enable a confirmation order from the Pingles to the National Grid, which is the only supplier to carry out essential electrical connection works in the timescales required to deliver the project by March 2026 and prevent any loss of the government funding. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Public Speaker, Mr. Conkle.
Chair, this is a very good news story to actually upgrade the Pingles. It should have been done years ago. A couple of things though should be commented on. One is we aren't doing this decarbonisation to Bedworth, we're building a new leisure centre which will then have to do some retrofit decarbonisation later. And then a substation is really interesting because that can provide also for EV charging points. Substations work both ways, they're a transformer. And as I raised at last week's scrutiny meeting, yeah, we should be looking at doing a package of stuff to try and green up things. So yeah, I'd be most interested if we are starting to do some more EV stuff around our estate as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Conkle. Does anybody have any points of clarification? No? Thank you. Anybody non-member? No. Okay, so that's been proposed and seconded by Councillor Price. Move to the vote. Thank you. Number 11, the Recycling Contract, Environment Act 2011, Food Waste Collections. Portfolio holder, Councillor Kath Price.
Hiya, thank you. Okay, so I'm moving the recommendation as set out in the report. Basically, legislation, the deadline for us to get this in place is April 2026. We've got the funding in place. One of the difficulties is going to be that many of the councils are going to be competing for equipment, for the vehicles and the bins, and also we need to be training the staff and recruiting staff. So basically need to crack on with this. So I move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Hughes. Thank you. Public speaker is Mr. Condacott.
You can call me Councillor Condacott as well, or anything else virtually. Food waste collections are a massive advantage for some areas. They really can reduce the amount of food people waste, because if you have to put your food waste in a separate bin, it actually leads to behavioural change. But that also leads to the problem of we don't know how much food waste this new collection system will have until we roll out the new collection system. So we don't know how many vehicles we need or how much it will produce. So unfortunately the government has done this rather late. We should have had a trial. We've got some data from South Warwickshire on food waste collections, but the demographics is different down there. And so I do ask, we really put out lots of education to actually make sure this is a success, so we don't buy loads of lorries and then find people aren't using the service. But also try and drive the education to actually people produce less food waste. Love Food, Hate Waste and the various other similar campaigns are really good at getting people to weigh their pasta or their potatoes and actually get to a situation where they're wasting less food. So in some ways you want this to be a failure and actually to have less food waste. And it's a great missed opportunity that the three northern borough and district councils aren't doing this as a joint exercise, because local council devolution, which isn't really devolution, is liable to at least merge the three councils together of North Warwickshire, Nuneaton and Bedworth and Rugby. So why are we actually procuring 3 lots of different trucks, 3 lots of different contracts? Why aren't we actually acting as if this is a contract for the 3 councils and doing it in a more economic and sensible way? Because you're going to have to educate people what to do. You're going to have to be on the radio, on the papers. So having a different scheme, for example, as you go towards Hartshill, one side of the road's in the Nuneaton and Bedworth, the other side of the road's in North Warwickshire. It makes no sense nowadays to have 2 different food waste collections or the same food waste collection procured via 2 different routes for the same area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Concord. Does anybody want any points of clarification? No? Thank you. Okay, it's, any non-government councillor Seymour.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, this is something that has to be done, so that we're not in breach of the legislative requirements. So it's got to be done anyway. But I've just got a question. I know that there was a shortfall in the funding, and I see in the report that we've had some extra funding for this. But have we actually had full funding? If not, is there a projected shortfall that we're going to have to put forward to it, or is it all fully funded now?
Councillor Price.
Well, I've been led to believe we've got full funding for it. I don't know if Kevin wants to say anything else, but from DEFRA, that's what I was advised anyway.
Thank you, Chair. So we've got capital funding that's received last year. We were notified in March, early April this year, from further funding. But the revenue costs, we are being informed it will be part of new burdens. That hasn't been confirmed. Don't know the value of that. That is still yet to come. It will be based on the formula, your area, etc. But that hasn't been notified formally as to what that is. But Vicky is aware of that and it would be coming through new burdens. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. Does that fully answer your question? Yeah. Okay, so it's been proposed.
Chair.
Oh, right, sorry.
Right. I just wanted to add 2 things. One is really that education is going to be absolutely key. And I think I mentioned it before when it came to Cabinet about letting people know that this is from government, coming from government, and it was actually, so the bill was passed in 2021. So, because Claire had done something in the Nuneaton News that was on Facebook, and of course you had all the naysaying things, and nowhere there was it clear that this is not something that the council is choosing to do, although it is a good thing. I'm not against it at all, but it's important for people to understand that it's not something that the council has decided to do off its own back, because people were saying, oh, it's going to cost this, blah, 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 all the usual things that you know full well they say. So please put in your things that it's actually, from government, and it was actually passed in 2021, and it's only just coming to fruition.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Concord. So, Claire Olsen, get your story right. Sorry, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a concern, in actual fact, in relation to this proposal, and I welcome the proposal. Obviously, if we can bring down the waste that goes to landfill, that's going to be applauded. However, can the portfolio holder give some indication as to how we will manage any contamination of any residual waste, please?
Councillor Price or Kevin, could you either? Kevin?
Thank you, Chair. I think further work needs to be done on that, and the learning from the south. We're working with North Warwickshire Rugby and Andrew Power, Warwickshire County Council, so perhaps I can come back and give some formal information on that. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. So we can get a full explanation and come back when we know a bit more.
Appreciate that.
Okay? Is that okay with everybody? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's been proposed, been seconded. Mr. Vote. Thank you. Okay, number 12, local government reform. So we're going to do this in a bit of a double take. So I'm going to have Tom's going to put some forward, and then I'll put recommendations forward, and then we'll go from there. So Tom, over to you.
Sorry, yeah. So just to introduce the report. So this report follows a significant amount of work that's been completed to date around local government reorganisation in Warwickshire. That came about from government direction late last year. This report is presented following the submission of the interim plan, which was an outline plan submitted to government in March. And each Warwickshire council, districts, boroughs and the county, as well as many others around the country, are now approaching the point where they need to determine a view of their council around what the future governance model for their region looks like. So for us, that's what does Warwickshire look like for the Nuneaton and Bedworth. Cabinet and subsequently full council recommended are asked to consider the government's feedback which is attached to the report, and also the Deloitte report, which was a piece of consultancy commissioned on behalf of all districts and boroughs by Stratford, informing a recommendation. There is further work to follow. We're looking at the opportunities around disaggregation of social care, what negatives come with that, but also what strengths and benefits. That will return to the appropriate committee at the right time. And further updates will follow between now and the submission in November 2025. The recommendations are as printed, but I believe Cabinet have now formed a view of what they wish to recommend to Council. So I'll introduce two of the recommendations on behalf of Cabinet. I believe Chris will cover the final one off. So the first recommendation is that the contents of the report are noted. And the second one is that it's recommended to Council that delegated authority is given to the Chief Executive to represent and act on behalf of the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council in matters relating to local government reform and reorganisation in consultation with the leader of the Council, which is a renewal of a previous delegation around this point. And then Chris, I believe you've got...
Thank you, Tom. So it be recommended to Council that a two unitary council model as follows. Based on existing boundaries of North Warwickshire Borough Council, Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, Rugby Borough Council. B, based on the existing boundaries of Stratford-on-Avon District Council, Warwick District Council, be put forward as the preferred governance option for Warwickshire. Those are the recommendations. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Hay. Thank you. I have had a written statement which has been sent to Cabinet that will be noted and kept with the minutes. The next speaker on this is Mr. Concoll.
Chair, we're to get a briefing on this as a county councillor, I think tomorrow, that's right. But it's important to understand we don't yet know how this system will work financially. If you consider the two unitary model, it's a bit like a divorce. We're splitting Warwickshire as a county in two, and it's who keeps the house and who keeps the mortgage. And some of the districts carry a lot of debt, as does the Neaton and Bedworth. But in response, we also have a lot of council housing. We've got 5,000 or so council housing flats. So we're not a poor council, but just in terms of we have a large debt, but we also have a large asset in terms of thousands and thousands of council houses. So the mechanics of splitting Warwickshire in half will actually mean what happened with our council tax for the two halves of Warwickshire. So whether we're actually better off or worse off will be depending on how that divorce system works and who keeps the debt and who keeps the assets, etc. So I wouldn't like to say whether it's better or worse for us from the financial point of view, but from the political point of view, it's definitely worth us being two different authorities. We've seen what's happened with fire, we've seen what's happened with transport, where we still haven't got our improved rail service to Coventry, and there's such a difference between the north of the county and the south that clearly we want to do everything possible to make the two unitaries work. It is not easy because that fundamentally works out as being more expensive slightly, but the opportunities to us not to lose things is going to be worth that. I mean, we've just lost the GP surgery in Wellington possibly. That's a £3-4 million investment. The rail service from Coventry to Nuneaton was a £25 million maybe bay platform. There's things where we actually get economic growth and benefit out of being a North Warwickshire unitary, not getting ignored by the South. And then when we come to things like Top Farm, that's being sold for development and the money will go into the county-wide funds for anything. Whereas if we've split in half, where does that money go? Does it stay in the Neaton and Bedworth? So there's lots of financial questions. It is an opportunity, a massive opportunity to get local government based in the Neaton and Bedworth, North Warwickshire, A5 corridor, but it's also a massive risk because we've got skills shortages in terms of our, we need to effectively create a new county council structure up here, and there could be economic problems if we end up carrying too much debt and all the wealth stays in the south. So a lot will depend how the government allocates various grants, various debts, and how the sort of divorce bit works. But fundamentally, we need local government to be more local. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Concord. Does anybody have any points of clarification? No? Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. My sympathies aren't any surprise to anyone, I don't think. My personal preference has always been for a two-unitary solution. I think that's where you and I, Leader, have more in common than we do on most other issues. But I do have some reservations. As always, the devil is in the detail. And there are a number of outstanding questions from the report. So it does present, to an extent, a one-sided view, and there are some gaps, I think, in the report, and I'll be digesting those in more detail because we only had the report quite recently. What I would like to seek some further clarification from Cabinet about is the recommendation, which was already printed, not the one that you've moved tonight about the referral to full council, which is about the delegation to the Chief Executive. Because the delegation as written is to represent and act on behalf of the Neaton and Bedworth Borough Council in all matters relating to the local government reform and reorganisation, but only in consultation with the leader. Consultation is my concern, Chair, about this. So I would like to understand what matters you expect to be delegated to the Chief Executive and which matters will be a purely political decision, because I think there are certain things on the matter of principle, Chair. I think whether it be a single member decision at the very least, where there can be some democratic oversight of what goes on, or whether it be a report to Cabinet, or whether it ends up being a extraordinary full council or during a normal full council. These are matters of pure principle. We're talking about democracy, Fawn and Eton and Bedworth, Chair, and I think that there would be a legitimate expectation that on the big decisions, where we have any ability whatsoever, I know an element of it is taken out of our hands by central government, but where we have that ability, it should be democratically elected councillors who make the big calls on the decisions. So I'd like to understand whether it's just technicalities which you're giving to the Chief Executive and things, you know, like employment and legal stuff like that, and that the big ticket items about the principles and the ultimate decision will rest with a democratically elected member or members. That's my key concern, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Right, so I don't want any of this to happen, to be absolutely honest with you. So I don't want a north and south divide. I really didn't need this at all coming to me in November, I think it was, when it came in, and like a steam train. And none of it would be politically motivated, because it's only for the residents of the borough that I represent, so I wouldn't do anything to do anything politically motivated. I don't need to tell you, and I'm sure you know, that Tom has been absolutely inundated with meetings on this, far more than I could attend. I couldn't attend going to every meeting that Tom's been going, being the leader of the council and doing my job as well. So Tom has got delegated authority to go to anything like that, but anything political will come back to the chair. Yeah, and Tom.
Chair, I may, this is obviously a recommendation to council that we delegate authority, so perhaps when we take this delegation to council to be considered by full council, we amend it just to carry it up to the point of full submission, because the intention is that we bring back prior to pressing go and submitting the final plan to government in November, that council have the final opportunity to consider it and put the stamp on it. Really, at this point, and perhaps I could have said this out clearer, is that it's useful for the council to form an in-principle view based on the information it has at this point, because that will then enable me to advocate for that view with Department of Health, Social Care, Education, etc. If we wait until the final point, there's not much time for me to say, here's our option, what can we do with it, sort of thing. So the intention is to return in September, date is 17th, for the final submission, and if we can't make that, it will come to an extraordinary meeting to be reviewed. So perhaps we include that amendment for full council.
Thank you for that clarification, Chair. I think the way it reads at the moment it is open to interpretation. As long as it's clear that ultimately signing on the dotted line is an elected member decision, then I'm happy with that.
Like I say, I'm hoping it don't actually happen, but yeah, of course. Anybody else? No? Okay, so the recommendation has been moved, seconded by Councillor Hay. Can we move to the vote? Thank you. Okay, item 13, recommendations from OSP. There is none. Item 14, any other items? Nothing. And actually, Mr. Concord, you've not even got your name down. So that is end of business. Thank you very much.